Hey everybody. I have been gone for the better part of this week, and I wanted to vlog, but I had a few problems. Work got in the way. I got a chest cold that I'm still getting over, and I had a lot of things to do, like I was moving my mother, who once again moved from one place to another, and I smashed my finger. There's a picture of it right there. Yeah, and I've just in general had a shitty week, and things have been on my mind from work that I can't share on this platform or at all, really. So when that happens, I feel kind of tongue tied. But in that time, some dramas went down here on YouTube, and in particular, the Daddy 05 YouTube drama, where I feel people made a pretty good case that he was abusing some children and filming it and putting it on YouTube. I feel like I watched this drama go down on his channel, on Philip DeFranco's channel, on Second Clancy, on Mr. Repsion, who I thought did some excellent videos on it. Even Drama Alert and Scarce and a whole host of other people talked about the Daddy 05 child abuse topic. And so I don't have anything else to add to it other than I do think that this is going to haunt him forever because the internet will not forget this one. But it got me to thinking about all of the different instances of child abuse allegations that I've heard of in my stint here on YouTube on this platform. And it made me start thinking, like, big picture here, just about child abuse allegations on YouTube in general over the years. And the first time I remember talking about child abuse here on YouTube was back in 2010 when I was having arguments online with Fitchful Thinking. And Fitch was a Methodist, and he talked about being a church youth group leader, and I made the argument that indoctrinating children into his faith and teaching them specifically about hell and how if they didn't obey their God, they were going to be burning for eternity. Teaching them that is child abuse. And I understand that even a lot of atheists aren't going to follow me on this argument. And I get that. A lot of people grew up around this as a common thing where they don't feel like that it hurt them or hurt other people, and it's just so common because the practice is widespread that people don't really have very negative opinions about the teachings of the church. But in my opinion, I feel like I made a very good argument that telling kids that they're going to burn forever in a lake of fire if they don't do good is child abuse. And after a while, after interactions with me and Aldous Valor, Fitchful Thinking decided to flip out on YouTube, make some weird allegations about me being some kind of psycho stalker, and then made a YouTube channel about, I guess he was writing a novel about atheists who are murderers because they have no conscience, whatnot. And then he kind of just disappeared from my radar anyway. I don't know if he started a new channel and became part of any new communities somewhere else. But that was my first interactions with people over the topic of child abuse here on YouTube. The next one were still friends in my circle here on YouTube arguing about child abuse, and it was Aldous Valor who was getting the allegation against him. But the child that was being allegedly abused in this instance belonged to Crazy to the Core. And Crazy to the Core, he left his child on the set with Aldous Valor, and in one of Aldous Valor's skits, this child who was too young to even understand words was being told that Aldous Valor would eat him because, atheists eat babies, right? It was a joke, but the late inventor Gorilla decided that the joke wasn't funny and that it was child abuse. And this giant drama ensued between Crazy 2D Core and Inventor Gorilla, and Aldous Valor and Inventor Gorilla. And I think in the end, most of those people made amends after that argument went on. But I feel like that was probably, even taking into account me talking about Fitch being a youth group leader, I think that allegation was probably the least substantiated out of all of them. A joke made to a toddler that could not understand English, that baby was going to be eaten. And it went a long time for me here on YouTube before I came across other instances of alleged child abuse. But the next one was my friend Jared, who most of you know as Eagle Eye 1975, because he actually had some real life issues that spilled out across YouTube. People learned what happened, but basically, I'll tell you what I know, real world, behind the scenes. Jared decided one night that his children needed to be punished for some things that they did, which included jumping on a bed right after he told them not to, and there was a ceiling fan and they were going to get hurt and whatnot. So he lined them up and he spanked them each with a wooden spoon. And this turned into a big legal issue for him. Okay. The news reports of it got spread across YouTube. People were calling him a monster and whatnot. He went through a very long ordeal over this. He became a different person as far as his thoughts about child rearing, and he did a lot of reflection and had to take a lot of classes and had to do a lot of thinking and had to overcome a lot to get through the Child Protective Services system. And that's all behind him now. And, sorry, still getting over the chest cold. Through this time, I visited his home twice over the years so far. And there was some time in between those two visits. And what I can tell you is now Jared is a soccer mom. Like, seriously, he is what you would stereotypically call a soccer mom. He is very, very involved in his children's lives. His children are everything to him, and he does live through his children. I'll tell you that much. Like, he doesn't do much outside of the care of his children. It just consumes his mind a lot. And having personally visited his children and seen how they interacted with him, I can personally vouch for the fact that they're not in danger in his home. you know. But there is a changing, I guess, paradigm about corporal punishment from parents and the way that people think about it, especially because the culture that, say, the Los Angeles school district would have versus where Jared is in Nebraska, is different by decades. It's going to take decades for the whole of Nebraska to stop raising their kids with spanking and the back of their hand across their face or whatever kind of things that back in the 50s probably were widespread even to, Southern California. But now, as child rearing becomes more and more liberal all over the place, some places are farther behind. And I feel like Jared was the one who had to break the cycle. It was within his generation where that paradigm shift had to happen, and he was the one who had to do all the work. Now his kids won't be parents that swat their kids with a wooden spoon, and that's just going to be a good thing for his bloodline in Nebraska, and the rest of Nebraska is going to have to catch up to that that whole shift in parenting logic. And I feel for him that it had to play out here on YouTube, and that it really affected the work that he put into his career, his education, his YouTube channel, which he's tried to come back to, and people just won't let it go. So he has kind of just shelved it, I have talks with him, and he'll leave comments on people's videos with that YouTube channel, but basically, the internet doesn't forget, and the internet keeps grudges a lot longer than we used to before the internet existed, and I'll get back to that. This is a recurring theme here. So, the next child abuse-ish accusation that I remember coming up on YouTube was Hannibal the Victor, who, as soon as people found out what his real name was, there was this rumor that spread around really quickly. His docs were spread around, and they were accompanied with a link to a website where it was basically a sex offender website had been copied by a private company. This private company was holding the same records that the state sex offender website would have held. But when you have to register as a sex offender, for certain cases, there's a limited amount of time that you have to do it. And once that time is up, you get to stop registering as a sex offender, and your information is taken down off of the state website. Well, these private companies, they popped up, and they extort people who had to register on these registries, and also other felonies as well. But they extort people by saying, we're not going to take down your information until you pay us. So this information used to be, legally out there for a certain amount of time, and then you've paid your debt to society because you were listed for that long, and now you get to be off. But then these private companies, they're not bound by the same rules. They just keep your information up until they've extorted money out of you. The internet doesn't forget, the next child abuse allegation thing that I heard of, I was actually involved in some of the outing here on YouTube, and I got some flack for it, but that was Tattoo Skin 72, and it was found that he had some time away from YouTube for a reason, and people looked into it. They found that he had a criminal record, and it involved some misconduct with his nephew. And plenty of videos were made about that. The part that stood out to me the most after making a couple of videos about it and talking with many people about it was that there were people within my circle of friends here on YouTube that were immediately forgiving and accepting of him. And in fact, he came back after a while and started making videos about his transition from a man to a woman. And those videos, to my knowledge, they might be still up on his channel, which, you know, I don't like associating people who have done anything in the realm of pedophilia, and especially charged and convicted or pled guilty to those things, and then associate that with somebody who is either LGBT or in transition or anything like that, because I hate when people equate the two, you know, the really ignorant of the world. But in this case, it just feeds that ignorance, I feel like. Well, yeah, there was something going on wrong with Tattoo Skin 72's mind as far as his own place in the world, and he ended up in a bad situation with his nephew and got caught, and now he's dealing with it in this other way, and it's like, well, shit. I wish that this could have happened without the incident with his nephew, but one of the things that came out with this were, as I was seeing some of my friends here on YouTube continue to be friends with him, and basically say, well, we don't know the whole thing, and you don't have to explain it to us. We're still accepting of you. We're just going to deal with you on the terms of like what friendship we've had in the past. When I saw these comments, I saw responses from him saying, yeah, and people don't know the whole story, and they should shut their mouths. Well, I know enough. Pulled up the court records myself. Paid for them. With my Patreon money. It was cheap, you know? And, yeah. Just like when I went to Jared's house, Eagle Eye 1975, and I saw how he interacted with his children, I think I might be personally vested enough in this particular story. I might be interested enough that I might go visit his nephew. If I'm on a road trip and I'm anywhere around that area, which I do want to go visit Canada one of these days, and that's where this happened, is between where I live and Canada. Yeah, I might stop and ask the victim himself what went on, because that's one thing that we haven't seen. We did see one of his nieces make a video and, you know, say that people didn't know the whole story, yada yada, and actually defend him, and that whole channel went down, you know. But I personally have 3 videos on my channel where I gave Tattoo Skin 72 shoutouts back in the day that I have unlisted or privated, because I don't want anyone to take anything that I have to say as an endorsement of him, you know. And I don't take videos down lightly. You know, I have a whole bunch of videos that, you know, are of questionable topics, don't reflect well on me. I have a whole bunch of videos that I've left up, but those three, fucking took them down. I don't care. You know, there are people who I've given shout outs to in the past that ended up, it turns out they're douchebags. And yeah, he's a close second to when I gave Hey Ruka a shout out back in the day. As far as failures on my part to really vet the people that I give shout outs to. Because Hey Ruka turned out to be a race realist, and that was a whole other thing. And now we have the Daddy 05 incident here on YouTube, where people have made evidence reels of all the videos that he put up on YouTube where his children were doing, under the context of it being pranks, horrible things to each other. And the parents were doing horrible things to the kids, and especially the scenes with Cody crying, it really does look like a clear-cut case of child abuse. And this will affect custody cases. This will affect the future of those children, but especially Daddy 05 and his wife right now. You know, this is going to come up on job interviews. This is going to haunt them for their lives. Like, there will be people who stalk them for at least the next decade, trying to find out who their employers are to let their employers know. Just being vindictive, because 4chan's like that, you know? YouTubers can be like that. And what I take from this huge time, this chunk of time that I've spent here on YouTube, and all of these different accusations of child abuse, is people can have the same information on what happened in front of them and come to completely different conclusions, right? And it can look like a clear-cut case to me, whereas to other people, they would say, oh, well, it's completely taken out of context and you don't know, and whatnot. And it's amazing to me that we can have the same information and come to completely different conclusions. But I'll tell you this. If what you saw or heard or think happened could be forgiven at any time, like if you think that under a certain circumstance that something could be forgiven, I would implore you to really work towards that end. Oh, it might take years. It might take a whole lifetime in some cases, but if forgiveness is possible for some of this stuff, I would say go for it. And here's why I think we need to do this. For most of my time here on YouTube, I've spent a lot of time arguing with theists about morality. And when I read the Bible, the fundamental underpinnings of Christianity, to me, were forgiveness and redemption. And I thought that those were good things. And in all of the scandalous things that have happened here on YouTube with Christian YouTubers, to me it seems like Christians are the worst at forgiving people. They're the worst at letting people have any redemption. And when I see that there are even there are websites dedicated to making sure that even after you have paid your debt to society for the smallest infractions, to where a judge says, you are now sentenced to this amount of a fine, this amount of time in jail, this amount of time on probation, and this amount of time on a registry. And after all of this, you will have paid your debt to society. When a judge says that, those are like extreme amounts of times that the judge is giving for something that could have been, say, in Hannibal the Victor's case, him chatting online, and talking to somebody that they then drop a hint that they're underage, and then poof, he's been caught in this internet sting. The huge amount of time and fines and chunk of his life that's missing that he was sentenced to by a judge is not enough because of the internet. And now forever, he can't shake it. He will never be redeemed. He will never have forgiveness. He will never be able to get right with society. He will never be a productive member of society who can work at any goal without constantly having to look over his shoulder and think, is today the day that somebody's going to tell my boss about something that I did a bajillion years ago? That without context just sounds horrible. And it won't be in the context of what have I done since then. All it takes is the allegation of child abuse or pedophilia or a lot of other things. All it takes is an allegation, and everything you've been working on, rug's been pulled out underneath you, and you start back at square one. Right? So I'm just going to say that with each of these cases, take a look at what the actual infraction was. Do some research yourself if you have to, in order to get to a place where you think that you can make the judgment as to whether or not this person is redeemable. And if there is a chance that they're redeemable, let them work towards it. If there isn't, and the person keeps lying about what happened and keeps minimizing what they did and does not look like they are seeking redemption, if they look like they're seeking to just minimize what happened and get on with their lives as if they're getting over on the world, as one of these cases seems to be, yeah, I would say don't let them go without that serious reflection, and that can be part of that path to really getting right with the world. Hold them to that. If the first steps that they need to take is actually realizing that they did something fucking wrong, then yeah, hold them to that. And don't let them get back in the good graces of the world without actually realizing that. But after that, just think about what should be the maximum punishment for whatever it is that happened after you find out what exactly it was, and think about forgiveness and redemption and how it's basically not an option anymore. Technology has made it so that it's basically a fantasy. And we all have skeletons in our closet that some of us don't want those things out. And think about any sort of thing that you might have done in the past, and if the internet had recorded it, would you be paying for it for the rest of your life? And would you deserve to be paying for it? Take care, everyone. I'll be back in about a day or two. This probably took a lot out of my lungs. I'll probably have to do some more healing up after this.